Welcome to the Pickspace AI Property Podcast. I'm Maor Cohen, the founder and CEO of Pickspace, a smart platform that simplifies property management. And each episode, I'll speak with industry leaders to explore management, to explore what's working, what's changing, and where the industry is headed. Let's jump into today's conversation with my dear guest, Hansel Rodriguez, CEO of COARE Companies. Hi, Hansel. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Of course, our pleasure. So, Hansel, your work with CORE Companies and CORE Industrial is a standout example for a lot of operational discipline and real estate innovation. I would love to explore your journey, what you are seeing across the manufacturing housing and how industrial asset class and dig into some of the challenges of you facing today. So please let us start with your background. Our listening, you want to hear a little bit more about your journey.
Sure. No, absolutely. My background, so really what we do, as you had correctly pointed out, we run 3 different lines of businesses. Our largest is manufactured housing, where we own the land and a resident owns the house above it. And those, some people call them mobile home parks. Some folks will call it manufactured housing, but it's truly it's the most affordable type of housing in the country, and in an environment, as we all know, where things are very expensive. So that's one line of business. It's our biggest business. We also have industrial, basically an acquisition company that buys industrial properties, particularly land. So think of where the landscaper would store materials or freight forwarding, transportation type companies. Where do they go to park their trucks or their Amazon Sprinter vans, all that stuff? They'd park it in one of these 1 to 10 acre sites, and we own the land that houses that. And then our third leg is accounting. We own a platform that aims to buy U.S. accounting firms here in the United States and do a roll-up strategy there. My background's always been on the transaction side. I started in M&A. And really started investing when I was a sophomore in college. But anyway, I could bore you with a lot of details there, but we'll jump right in.
No, I think that's what our listening actually want to hear. They want to know, like, how did you start? What led you to this? How, like, a lot of people want to know how to even become a CEO of property management companies. Feel free to dig a little bit into that. I think it will be very beneficial.
For sure. So I think, like one of the beautiful things about the United States, I always say, is that you do get the opportunity to kind of create your own way, right? So my family, they owned grocery stores. They were in the liquor store business, kind of what you would expect first generation U.S. immigrant to do. But one of the things my parents were really tough on was like, look, go to college and find your way. My siblings at the time didn't really want to go to school. And I wanted to be in the military my whole life. So I ended up going to college just, as a consequence of that, ended up going in finance and political science, and just found out about investing. I always hear as a kid about CNBC and stuff. Unless you're in it, it's very hard to be smart around it. And so as a sophomore in college, I started working for a developer in school in North Carolina. He was a developer who's very well known in North Carolina. They had done everything around affordable housing, low income tax credit, and apartments. And he literally, I asked him, could I work for you? I know you can't pay me, but I'll do it for free. I just want to learn. And that's how it worked. Did that for a year, coming out of pocket for the gas to do it. But that's really where I learned everything. From there, I started flipping houses. From there, I learned about investment banking and M&A, which is just a fancy word for, helping companies buy companies. And that's how I got going. Now, 10 years later, I'll tell you that you're always learning, but the start was very much just being lucky to have some mentors and just trying things out, not being afraid to give a go at it.
Wow, amazing. And you look so young and fresh, and you have like 10 years of experience behind you. That's incredible. So thank you for sharing. So you've built a portfolio of over like 1,600 MHP sites and manufacturing housing, right? And
we're almost to 3,000 now. Yeah.
3,000. Oh my God. You see, even our investigation is already lagging on your speed. So thanks for correcting this. So 3,000. Oh my God, expand into iOS and also warehouses assets. So what was the origin vision behind CORE Companies, and how has that evolved as you have scaled?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, anybody that knows me will tell you that I love the transaction side of the business. So I love, negotiating deals. I've turned out to be an okay fundraiser. And I like executing. Where, the difficulty always comes is like getting, the management side, making sure you hire the right people that can execute. When I started, I was just doing deal by deal, found my first deal, found a partner, we raised it together, got going that way. I would have never in a million years thought I'd be running a private equity firm by no degree of the imagination. I truly thought I would do a couple deals. Maybe that would find me a way out of my full-time career. Back then, I was working as an analyst in investment banking. And so I thought that's how it would work. But obviously, as you're learning every day and doing what starts out as like you're just negotiating deals, well, you now start negotiating to bring on team members and building teams. And fundraising is a big piece of our business, just given the scale of what we do. It evolved substantially from what was just here's a guy who wants to go do real estate deals. Today, what is that vision? I'll tell you, we became very effective in the manufactured housing space. I don't know that there are many names out there in the industry that would not know our name, and we've only been around for 5.5 years. And that, yeah, and if people were to ask why, we work very hard. We, for the most part, obviously things happen in life, but when we say we're going to do something, we do our best to do it, and we communicate if we can't for some reason. And we're one of the are without question one of the fastest to bid in the market. That built a lot of credibility with people to get us going. Now, as you get bigger, obviously life gets easier, things come to you. And that's how I got into industrial. We At the end of the day, in the investing business, you have to decide, are you willing to take more risk to do more deals, or are you willing to expand to other verticals that you think are more interesting as a way to kind of expand out, but not stop what is my main job, which is investing? That's how we ended up in industrial outdoor storage.
Oh, that's super interesting. It's really interesting. And looking across your businesses, MHPs and iOS, what are the top one, two friction point that keeps you up at night and or your leadership up at night?
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. So in the manufactured housing side, it's for people always say real estate's mailbox money. Like obviously, this too, right? It's not accurate. There's real work to be done. So though I love manufactured housing for how stable it is, it's had 25 years of consistent positive growth of NOI. Right. At one time, it had the lowest default rate of all real estate. I mean, you can't find that in most aspects of real estate. But the management, 54 people run that business. And so there's a lot of management between maintenance, SAMs, community managers, regional managers that goes on a day to day. Industrial outside storage, it's a land strategy, also a scarcity play, just like manufactured housing, but it's triple net. So it's a triple net lease. The landlord pays taxes, insurance. They're really responsible for everything. So when you compare that to manufactured housing, where we own the landscaping, the infrastructure, we're constantly going out for repairs. And in industrial outdoor storage, it's a much easier management for the landlord. I'd say like that's the biggest thing. From an investment perspective, it's obviously a lot easier to value a lease for 5 years with one tenant than our manufactured housing assets where we have hundreds of tenants per deal. There's a lot of things you're kind of figuring, but they're similar in that they're both land strategies. They're both sectors you cannot buy. You basically cannot develop. It's very difficult to get entitlement to build them. And that's really core to what we do and the strategies that we like so far.
Thank you for that. And just circling back to something you said before about a few good traits that you guys in core companies do. A word is a word, fast delivery, and a few other things that you mentioned. But if we're looking about on the market itself or competitive landscape, what do you think, makes you unique other than the things that you said? And how do you look at the market in the next 2, 3 years?
Yeah, no, good question. So I'll answer that by sectors. I'd say in manufactured housing, what makes us unique is that when we started, especially, we were willing to do deals that were smaller than a lot of the competition. At this point in time, all the largest private equity firms in real estate know about manufactured housing or have invested in it. So once you get above a certain threshold, it's hard to compete with them because they have the cheapest cost of return, cost of funds that's out in the marketplace. But where we get a lot of credibility is we've done hairy deals. We're comfortable doing complex transactions. We've done LLC purchases, which isn't very common. We have worked around people's tax situations. Sometimes they want to do 1031 and other things. We're very flexible. A lot of the guys that have cheaper cost of capital have very strict mandates. Has to have hit certain occupancy goal has to be very clean cut. They'll pay a premium, but it's got to fit their bucks, like, like a very clean grid. And then, but deal size matters too. We are totally fine. In our world, we talk about small deals in the $5 million range. We'll do that all day. Right. And at the time, groups wouldn't touch that. That was not out there. There was a handful of groups that would be willing to do that. In industrial, it's early. Manufactured housing has become pretty, I'd say, fairly mature as an industry asset class with a lot of different groups. Industrial outdoor storage, I mean, we were at a conference and it was well said. We're like in the second inning. It's so early. Just participating right now makes you competitive. And coming from a very competitive industry like manufactured housing and multifamily, just doing what you do in the blocking and tackling makes you highly, respected in a sector like that. That's highly fragmented still.
That's totally correct. But also I think there is another thing I want to dive into, because
Yeah.
if you want to scale, you absolutely cannot do it as you manage a grocery store. As you mentioned earlier, you need to use tech, you need to use processes, you need to use systems. So I want to talk a little bit about the different system that you take advantage of. Can you share software stack you're using right now, or across the lease management, payments, resident communication?
Yeah, no. And you're right. I haven't covered that well, but there definitely a lot of what we do is trying to make the assets more efficient. So it is 100% execution. When you think about execution, all that means is running properties more efficient. So yeah, we use Rent Manager, Yardi. We've integrated to now, which is really like an enterprise software system that connects rents coming in with payables going out. It's a full suite of tools there. On the communication side, we use a lot of the common tools used in the industry like Teams and things like that. Where I will tell you that, and you're much sharper at this than I am, where real estate tends to lag behind traditional companies is there is no AI tool. There's integrations that have been talked about, like Meet a Lease for multifamily, but there's been no implementation.
AI tool that you are aware of? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and what everybody will tell you in my world is that I'm a finance guy, right? Is that we feel like, so every day we're getting that much further behind the curve on, like, what we know about AI, because it moves so quickly. But you're 100% right. I would tell you most of the multifamily and MH industry still doesn't implement any aspect of AI into their assets.
True.
And if you think about why, like, there's not a huge, like, if you think about manufactured housing, you can't build it. So there's not a huge requirement to innovate as there is in places like accounting and other industries where there's real like throughput, and you got to cut down costs to the customer if you want to stay competitive.
Agreed. Agreed. And I think, it's not for today. Today is all about you, but one day we'll sit on another talk and I'll show you a little bit of what we've built with AI and how it's actually within the system. So it's pretty cool to see how AI improve your team and everyone else once you use it correctly, and not only as an add-on, razor as a part of the integral system of property management. But we talked about the good things in your business, but I want to take you a little bit to the frustration or the pain points across your management or even tech stack. Uh, if you had a magic wand and to fix major pain across your property management tools, what would it be?
Good question. I mean, I'll tell you that probably the most challenging thing in property management in general is just turnover. So staffing, and it goes right back to what you're saying. I mean, the other industries have done a really good job to automate and innovate, and use technology to basically have a higher quality pool of employees to service and manage that. When you think about our world, we probably run 40 to 50% turnover on the field staff, CMs, maintenance, all that stuff. So if you're constantly hiring, training, onboarding, doing all that, there's that joke of Walmart too. That's an example of that. They say like 1 or 2% of the US population has worked at a Walmart because they have arguably up to 100% turnover in a year. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable. They have their own universities to get them trained. But the point being, the same turnover is hands down one of the biggest challenges in companies like ours. And we're always trying to find ways to become more efficient in not just training, but onboarding and making sure we constantly are making our talent, feel appreciated and that they're incentivized well so that their turnover can go down. But I'll tell you, like that's without question, it always comes down to management. That's where the biggest challenges have always been. Every time we get management right, we do incredibly well and we work very hard at that. And when we don't, we suffer.
you need to find a way, not you, the industry in general, to find a way to re-educate people. They used to stay in places 40 years till they retire. Now people jumping around every year, and
Yep.
that's hard to build a business with people jumping in and out, right?
It's tough. Yeah, think about all the institutional knowledge. You train somebody, they finally get good at their job. But the expectation in social media is, well, if you're not moving, you're not growing in 2025, which, right? So like, which is crazy, but that is the world we live in. And it's an instant gratification thing. Someone's willing to pay a salary before they even have the renegotiation with their employer. Just, they want to move on. And there's, every
No, no,
industry's
no.
got its challenge.
You loud and clear, and I think it's a fair point, and it's a hard one because I see it. Everyone see it. Everyone that manage and run a business know exactly what you're talking about. And sometimes we need to find the little small things that make our teams feel very safe
Yeah,
and very very committed. If it's
100%.
another word here and there or one-on-one that you meet with every one of the team at least once a month to share and to talk and to maybe show some letter in the horizon how they can grow within the operation. These kind of things will help them feel more heard and appreciated, and then of course stay a little bit longer. But I hear you loud and clear. And now I'm going to move actually to a different topic because we talked about tech, but we didn't talk about the rent collection and
Yeah.
payments and the financial friction. So maybe you can share a little bit about how do you do things today? Online payments, bank transfers, tech stack, and all everything around it.
Yeah, so we do. It's the same for most of the industry. At this point, most states allow you to be fully online and electronic payment. Our tenants go into a portal, they'll log in, they get their account, and they can pay online, right? And now there are states like Nevada that require cash collection or point of sale locations on site. But generally speaking, most states allow online. So that's how we do it. And we use our system Yardi to affect those payments today.
100%. No, that's fair. And you think most of the people pay with credit card or ACH? And how do you deal with the fees? Because I know it's like around the 3%
It's
fee on.
expensive. Oh, yeah, it's expensive. And I mean, and you know it too. Obviously, with the Zelle and other alternatives that have made movement of funds so efficient, you do have to ask yourself why 3% service charge on things like rent is normal. But right now, status quo is, yeah, they have to pay a fee if it's credit cards. A lot of folks do use credit cards. Your best, I wouldn't say the best, but it tends to be your best tenants try to set up automatic ACH and things like that. But as you know, that can make life a little difficult depending if your management of your budget and things like that. It depends, but generally, I'd say credit cards. And one other thing I'll say too, depending on the demographic themselves, there's also a tendency to still want to pay in cash, but they'll go into a location. So we have partnerships through the systems we use that allow you to go to a Walmart or Publix, and you could literally pay your rent, and it'll automatically post on our ERP system. So
Like
again,
money orders.
yeah, yeah, because
Yeah.
with all these the great thing about the storefronts, right? Like a Publix is everywhere. So now we don't need to worry about like back in the day we had to go to a certain bank to deposit things like that. Now the whole United States, any brand franchise that has an affiliate relationship allows it. There's a fee as always, but it makes the convenience factor better for people that want to pay traditionally.
And the last dig on that aspect, who is paying the fees? That are you pushing it to the tenant or you eat it as an organization?
Good question. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think we pay it, except for, well, let me be clear. On the consumer side, they pay the fee if they're using a credit card. I think if they're going through the affiliate, like if somebody goes into a Publix, they're not paying an additional fee
Right.
to go through Publix. They are just using it as the way to get payment through, right? And we pay a fee for the system that allows us to go through this affiliate networks.
That could become a lot of fees, right? With 3,000 units. But yes, I totally hear you. Sometimes, for convenient, you have to pay that fee,
Yeah.
even though kind of weird because Zelle and other things are much cheaper, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. Look, Zelle is incredible. The problem with Zelle is for as quick as it is to receive, it's as quick to go out. There's a what we have found is it's a tough thing to audit, right? Like if you think about an accounting function in a company, and if you give people Zelle access, they can move money in a second, and there's not much in the way of auditing control. So whereas like your traditional slower forms of payment allow you that slower progression and SOP to kind of mirror that. It's so true on the way out as it is on the way in. We actually, it's still why are companies still paying net 30? It's not always that we can't wire them. It's that we want to make sure we went through the processes to make sure that the invoice is valid, that the certain supervisors oversaw it. Otherwise, you can get yourself some big issues if you just pay instantaneously.
I agree. I think like Zelle and other like Venmo and stuff, it's more peer to peer and not
Exactly.
business to business. And in
Yep.
order to make sure everything is in the books and IRS is okay with everyone, so it's better to keep it according to the rules.
That's right.
Now we're moving more towards the end of the podcast, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about like leadership, team, emotional. To wrap up, let's talk about that. As CEO, where you feel your time is pulled away from strategy and stack of operation, when your team brings up tech problems or operational friction, do you have time to get involved or to deal with it, or what do you do? How do you operate
Yeah.
with your?
Absolutely. No. I mean, at the end of the day, that's that was the biggest learning piece for me, right? The most important thing you'll do as a CEO is manage your people, right? You could always get the next deal. You can always make your company bigger. But if your people, especially where you are today, are not happy, comfortable, well incented, then it's like the saying, right? You want to make sure everything's good at home before you go out, right? And so it's true in a business. And so those are to me like the fire drill calls. I'd say 30 to 40% of my day are personnel related, making sure our teams know what they need to do, or that, when things bubble up and they come to the level of a CEO in any company, they're usually the most challenging problems. It's not that they can't figure it out, but they need guidance. We're in 13 states, different jurisdictions, different time zones. So that's happening throughout the day. And I'd say like 30% of the day is that. But I make it happens daily. I used to think, I'd make like Mondays are for this, right? Or Tuesday. It doesn't work like that. So problems happen. You got to tackle them. You got to tackle them quickly. And then obviously you can do the more strategic stuff, but there's always this like freedom window of things that would just happen. And I kind of like to quantify it as like 30% of the day.
And again, this has been great conversation. So for those who want to learn more about COARE Companies or connect with you, we're the best place.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can always reach out to me directly by email or visit our website. So our website is COARECOS.com. And there's a contact us form there. Or you can shoot me an email at Hansel, Hansel, like Hansel and Gretel, at COARECOS.com. But you can always visit our website or reach out to us, reach out to me directly over email. But I'm always very plugged in. So, or even add me on LinkedIn. There's plenty of ways to get a hold of me.
Well, thank you again for joining us on Pickspace AI and Property Podcast. And thank you everyone for tuning in. If you found this insightful or helpful, follow us for more. And if you're ready to simplify property management, visit pickspace.com. See you next time.